Welcome back to Whiskey Garage, guys, and today's episode is a little bit different. No reviews this time. We're going to go over some whiskey terminology for you newcomers. Stay tuned. Welcome back, guys. So we're going to kind of be scattered all over the place on what terms we're going to do. So we're going to start off with this. This is a Weller Foolproof. Foolproof. Foolproof meaning when they put the alcohol into the barrel, normally it's 125 proof, like right when it's unaged. The foolproof means they're bringing the alcohol back to that ABV, meaning, so let's say it ages for X amount of years, it comes out at 130 proof. They're going to water it down a little bit to come back to 125 proof, whatever entry point that whiskey went into that barrel. That's what foolproof is. They're giving you the full proof that they entered the barrel at. So that is foolproof. Foolproof. Everybody has different entry points. So this one is 114. Normally foolproof is 125. It all depends. Which leads me to my next one. This is a Weller Foolproof store pick. Now, a store pick is when a liquor store, a store in general, they select certain barrels. They're normally single barrels. They select certain barrels and they pick which one they like the best, and then that company bottles it up for them, and that's their store pick. So your store pick is going to taste a lot different from the regular offering. So if you have one of these and you have a regular one and you have a store pick, they're going to taste pretty different. This one's excellent. This was Ramona Liquors, foolproof store pick. Make sure you visit them. Good friend there. So moving along, we got store pick, which is a store picking their own barrel and getting it bottled for them specifically by their taste. We got foolproof. Foolproof being you're getting the entry point proof of what that bottle was aged at to begin with. So let's move on to small batch. Now, small batch is there's no legality with this, but small batch meaning that you have a small amount of barrels. Now, some distillers have different definitions for small. Small could be 3 barrels, which I have a bottle of, is a preservation distillery. They do 3-barrel small batches. Or you could be like Elijah Craig that does, 200-300 barrels. That's their small batch. They blend those barrels together, and that is your small batch bourbon. So that is what small batch is. There's no legal term for it, so it could go anywhere from 2-3 barrels to hundreds of barrels, depending who's calling it a small batch. So let's move on to the term bottled in bond, or bib. Bottled in bond was an act that they placed in 1897 to basically keep the quality of a whiskey where it should be. So there's 4 requirements for being a bottled in bond. It has to be aged at least 4 years, and that aging of 4 years also has to be in a federally bonded warehouse. So they got to get that barrel, put it in that warehouse so it's supervised, and make sure that there's no corners cut. Also, it has to be bottled at 100 proof. That's 50 ABV. ABV being alcohol by volume. Also, it has to be distilled by a single distiller in a single season. So it can't be 2 distillers. Seasons is, let me see, January to June and July to December. It can't be one from January and one from December. It can't be like that. It has to be 1 season, 1 distiller, and that has to go into a barrel. It has to be 100 proof when they pull it out, and it has to be in that bonded warehouse for 4 years at least. There's some 10-year bottled in bonds, at least 4 years. So that's what bottled in bond means, or BIB, if you see that when people are writing it on Reddit or such. So let's go to cask strength. There's cask strength and barrel strength. There's barrel proof. It all means the same thing, meaning they got that barrel, they pulled it off the shelf, and they tested it, and it's 138 proof. All right, that's what we're gonna bottle it at, 138 proof. Or over here, we're gonna bottle it at 129 proof. It is whatever comes out of the barrel without it being diluted down to what they want to have it at. That's why you have those like 126.4 proof. That's what barrel proof, cask strength, barrel strength. That's what those terms mean. So let's move on to mash bill. Mash bill, when you hear people talk about people's mash bill, is they are talking about their recipe. How much corn, how much barley, how much wheat, so on and so forth they're going to put in it. And once you grind all that up and you distill it, that's their mash bill. Everybody has different mash bills. That's why whiskey tastes different. So that's mash bill for you. So we can move on to the term. Let's see. Staying on mash bill, this contract distilling. Contract distilling means that we got a small distillery that's just starting out, and they don't got enough money to buy a still, or they have a little tiny still that just produces like maybe a barrel and a half a day. And stills are expensive. They get into $500,000 million stills here. So they contract distill from a bigger, producer that just makes tons and tons of whiskey. So they're basically saying, hey, here's my mash bill. Can you make me this whiskey and put it into a barrel? All right. That's contract distilling. I'm going to contract you to make my whiskey, but I'm going to put my name on it. Whatever, right? So, which leads me to my next term, which is MGP. I'm sure you'll hear people say, oh, it's MGP. MGP stands for, and I always get this wrong, Midwest Grain Products. I think they just got bought out by Ross and Squid. But Midwest Grain Products is located in Indiana. So when people say, hey, this is, sourced from Indiana, most likely it's going to be sourced from MGP. Meaning that MGP is one of the largest, if not the largest, producer of whiskey. So what they do is they make tons of mash bills, they barrel it, they age it, and then you come there and be like, you know what, I want this, and they're like, okay, we have 1,000 barrels of it. All right, give me 2 because that's all I can afford, So that's where the word sourcing comes from. So the word sourcing is I'm sourcing my whiskey to MGP because I don't have enough of it. So I could have them contract this. I can have MGP contract distill it, or I can just source it from them, and then I could bottle it and put my name on it. But then you got to put on the bottle that it's distilled and aged in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. So that's a dead giveaway that it's MGP. MGP makes very, very good stuff. They just bought out Penelope. Penelope's always been MGP. There's an immense amount of companies that you may be drinking that you may not think that is. You may think that they distill it, but it's sourced from MGP. So there goes all those terms: sourcing, mash bill, contract distilling, and MGP. So now we get into the nitty gritty, and you got companies that like to do grain to glass. So grain to glass means that they own a farm, let it be on their property or not. They grow the grains, the corn, the barley, so on and so forth. They grow it, they grind it up, they put it into their mash bill, they distill it, they age it, and then they bottle it and put it into the glass. It's pretty self-explanatory. So people like Frey Ranch, Frey Ranch has a grain to glass. That's what they're known for. They have their own farm. Woodinville, I believe, does grain to glass also. And then the Grain and Glass series by Heaven Hill, which was a complete flop. So there's a lot of them out there. So then we move on to the ways we drink it. So this, if you hear somebody, I'll put it in a Glen for me. This is a Glen Karen. It's easy to drink it this way. It's easy to smell it. You don't have to be fancy. You can put it into a regular glass. You can drink it neat, which means no water. You can drink it on the rocks, a big old cube of ice or a bunch of ice, however you like it. No one's here to judge how you drink it as long as you enjoy it. So then we move on to things like finishing. Finishing is very unique. You have a lot of finishes. There's cognac finishes. There are wine finishes. There's rum barrel finishes. It just goes on and on and on and on. So you can have any sort of finish, meaning that they make their whiskey, they age it, then they pull that whiskey out and they put it into a used barrel, like a lot of them do Pedro Jimenez barrels, XO barrels, or sherry cask barrels, or honey barrels, or wine barrels. They'll take an old wine barrel and they'll put their whiskey in there, and then it gives you those dark fruit taste. They just pull out a little bit of it. They don't age them that long in there. They probably 6 months, maybe a year. Just a slight finish on it, and those finished whiskeys are excellent. Probably easier to drink than just a regular straight whiskey. And then we got, you might see people write NAS, non-age stated, meaning that there's no age on it. You have bottles that say like 18 or 5 or 4 or whatever number they have on here. That means that is how old the whiskey is. So it's a little bit tricky when it comes to age stating a whiskey. So non-age stated, NAS, means there's no age statement on it. But age stated, meaning that there is an age statement on it. There's a few things about that. So to put an age statement on your whiskey, and if your whiskey is blended, just what it is, if you take one whiskey here and one whiskey here and you mix them together, that's a blend. So let's say I have a 20-year-old Kentucky bourbon and I want to blend it with this, let's say, 7-year-old Indiana bourbon, because it gives it a distinct taste when I mix it together. So let's say I blend those together. Now I could choose to put an age statement on it, but by law it has to be the lowest age statement on it. So I could have 5% 7-year and 95% 18-year, and I still got to put that as a 7-year-old whiskey. So most of the time when people are blending and they don't put an age statement on it, is because it's not really worth it. Even if you have 1% of anything in there, that's the age you have to state on there. They normally put age statements on things, to kind of show off. Hey, you're getting a 9-year whiskey for $50. Cool, that's a great deal, great value. So like Eagle Rare 10 years old. That's it. I mean, it could be 10 years, 9 months. Could be 11 years, but they have 10-year-old whiskey in there at least. So that's what that means. And with that being said, the age of the whiskey is not always the best. There's some young whiskeys. I've tried some 2-year-old whiskey. Excellent. Just saying. So with those terms in mind, I don't even know. I probably gave you like 20 different terms. Those are the terms that we normally use. There's other terms, like terms that I use, like, oh, it drinks hot, meaning you could feel that burn. You could feel it right here in your nose when you take a sip of the whiskey. It drinks hot, on the palate, which means on your tongue. Let me nose it. I'm going to put my nose in there and smell it. So those are, I guess, YouTube terms that we use a lot because we do reviews. So those are the terms that I got for you guys. I've probably missed an abundance of them, but I want to give you guys the rundown on those commonly used terms. And I want to let you guys know that I'm going to start a Patreon. I know I made fun of it last time, but I'm going to start a Patreon because I want to do a giveaway. And the way I'm going to do this giveaway is it's not going to be based on, you know, you subscribing on here. It's going to be I mean, if you subscribe on here, you're going to see this video, right? Because you watch my videos. Thank you. It's going to be based on tier system. So I'm going to be raffling off a bottle of Maker's Mark Cellar Age 2023. And this is a very hard bottle to find. It's a unicorn bottle for most. It's nice and sealed. It's a great bottle. It's better than the 2024. So this is the way it's going to work. I'm going to put the link in the bio. I'm going to have a tier system. There's going to be 5, 10, 15, and 20. $5 a month gets you 1 entry. 10 up to 20 gets you 4 entries. So once a month, I'm going to raffle off something nice. And depending on what tier you are, the more entries you get. And I'm going to do that live or however you want to do it. So nobody thinks no funny business is going on. If you guys like that kind of stuff, let me know, because I can do it every month or every other month. And then after the raffle, you know, if I decide, oh, I'm going to raffle off, you know, like a Old Forester. Oh, I already had 3 of those. Okay. Drop down to the Let's Support Me $2 tier. I don't want that bottle. We can go that route, you know. So let's see how this works out. Let's get some Patreon members in there, and once I hit, you know, a good number. Now, I'm not going to do a lot of members, you know. If a lot of members want to join, that's fine. But once we hit at least, let's say 50 members or 50 people in the tiers, then I'll go ahead and raffle off this bottle. You could start off with the $2 tier to just help me out. Maybe I'll make a $1 tier. It doesn't, whatever the lowest tier you want to get into. You know, all the support helps. Once that hits, I'll announce it on the Patreon, obviously, and then we'll go ahead and raffle off this very nice unicorn bottle to some, to most. It is. It's even the better one. This has 13% 11-year-old whiskey and 87% 12-year-old whiskey. So if they wanted to age state this, they would have to say it is 11-year-old whiskey. But this is delicious. I hope everybody, you know, goes and follows on Patreon, at least to support. And it's fun, you know, have a raffle. You can spend $5 a month to win some cool bottles. I made this because I feel like entering a raffle at, you know, $20 or, you know, $50 is just too much. I see all these raffles all the time, or like, hey, like the liquor store raffles, where they make you buy a bottle of crap, you know, to be in this raffle of like 200 people. So it's like I get a bottle of, you know, organic vodka and still don't win. So you can be supporting me. You could have a chance to win. It's very hard to find, you know, $300, $400 bottle for $5. You know, what's $5? You know, we spent $5 on bullshit. With that being said, thank you for watching the Whiskey Garage on this episode of Whiskey Terminology. Go ahead and like the video, share it to your friends. You know, the link for the Patreon will be in the bio. And go ahead and start doing that. I appreciate all the views. Thanks again.